Hello. It's been a long time. Like, too long. Welcome back. Since Friday, we had our crazy game night. It's Monday. Hope your weekend was good. Or at least as good as can be. Give me 1 second. Okay. So, we're having a politics talk tonight. There has been a couple of things that have happened. Not sure if you saw it. Potential insurrection riot in Washington, D.C. was kind of interesting and horrific for everyone. But there's been some other things that are happening too, and I felt like it's been a while since we caught up on our political chats. It used to be every Monday. We haven't done it in a while just because either I've been busy with work or I didn't want to. What's up, Tibbs? How you doing? Yeah, politics, weird. So there's a few things, and we'll start like as close to chronological order as possible. So, not to go back too far, but we had a Senate race in Georgia, a special election, and I think it's technically one was a special election, one was a runoff election. Both won by the Democrats, which puts the Senate in a 50-50 split, with Kamala, I always say her name wrong, Kamala Harris, being sort of the deciding vote in the Senate. So good for the Democrats. There's some back and forth talk about how effective a 50-50 Congress ever is, because it doesn't necessarily mean that, it's rare that all the Democrats vote 50 and then the Republicans vote 50. There's always a couple of crossovers here and there. And after this week with the 2K checks talk and Joe Manchin saying, nah, maybe I'm not going to do that, it's even more critical than ever. You look like a real boy now. I know, right? This is what quarantine does. What's up, Danny? So both the Democrats won. Reverend Raphael Warnock was running against Kelly Loeffler, who had to have been one of the more disliked senators in the country. I think. I don't know anyone that was super excited about having her. She was brought up on numerous accusations of I don't know if you call it impropriety or whatever, but basically selling stock for her own enrichment based on knowledge that she learned as a senator. I don't know where that came out in terms of, yes, that actually did happen, but it's really shitty anyways. And she just seemed really fake. Like if you ever saw Kelly Loeffler talk, I think that's her name, by the way, Loeffler? If you ever heard her talk though, she's like so fake or something. Like I saw some interview with her where she's wearing like a backwards hat and she's like, I'm just like y'all. And then if you hear her talk other times, she doesn't talk at all like that. Like not at all. She just seems like, to me, she seemed a lot like a super wealthy person, like a rich person who was born very rich, like trying to pretend like they weren't born very rich. That's what Kelly Loeffler reminded me of when I was listening to her speak sometimes. I'm just like y'all. Like she's never. Have you seen Arrested Development, which is what a lot of this show is based on? The episode where Lucille asked Michael what a banana costs. Like, what could a banana cost? $10? She's never been in a grocery store. That's what Kelly Loeffler seems like to me. Like someone who has never done any sort of average human being type thing. But Loeffler was terrible, and Ossoff is a trust fund Democrat, surprise, surprise. And I think Warnock is a pretty crazy dude too. Hey, I don't like Ossoff. I mean, if you saw his politics, you would know why. Likely, you don't like it for different reasons than I don't like him. He's not a big fan of Medicare for all. He's not a big fan of any of the progressive policies, really. So it didn't make too much sense. Hello, fellow young people moment. Exactly. It's exactly. But like, it's just like that, except that's her whole life. It's like trying to pretend like she's a normal person. Like she's actually a lizard person, but she just sort of has to mimic like human things. That's what Kelly Loeffler seems like to me. Purdue or whatever his name was is also bad. Yeah, he is not great either. He was also brought up on a bunch of corruption stuff, I think, selling stocks early. Just everyone had bad candidates on both sides of the aisle. Warnock wasn't great. I thought he was a little bit better than Ossoff, but he wasn't great. Let me see something. I see like I'm getting a little bit of kickback from YouTube here. Let me just adjust something. And I might be running a little low on bitrate. Give me 1 second. And watch my internet completely hate this. Because for whatever reason it hates when I click to 16,000. See how well that goes. I don't have high hopes. I'll put it back down to 14,000 if it evens out. It looks like the connection's better, but we'll see how quickly my internet drops it. But anyways, but everyone terrible candidate. And in my opinion, even though I'm all for the 2K check thing, I'm all for helping people. That's my whole thing. Like, just get money in the hands of people that need it. I don't give a shit about means test. I don't give a shit about nothing. We're in the middle of a crazy once in a generation pandemic. Stop being a dick with money and just send it to people, because people have to be alive, right? They have to be able to eat and live in their home and take care of their children. Like, I don't know. It's crazy that that's like an argument, but I also don't like the fact that Ossoff and Warnock basically ran on like, hey, if you guys elect us, we'll give you $2,000. Like, I know that's not bribery, and me saying like, oh, you're bribing voters is a little bit like gauche or something, but it's adjacent. I mean, it's not that far away. Like, it's money that people should get for sure, right? But it just seemed weird that was like their pitch is like, hey, elect us and we'll give you $2,000. Like, okay. And now, of course, it comes out that Joe Manchin doesn't want to do it, so we don't even know it's actually coming. We don't even know. But the Republican candidates are both god-awful, too. Loeffler got her ass beat real bad, and I think everyone expected it because she was so terrible. Like, she couldn't connect with anyone. She's a terrible candidate. And like, Warnock didn't even have to be like half good to beat her, in my opinion. Ossoff had a tougher time knocking off Purdue. I think that vote was like very close. I didn't see the final total, but we were watching it. Was it last Tuesday during raid night? And it looked like within a couple 100,000 votes, maybe 100,000 votes. I don't know how close it was to the recount amount. I'm sure the recount has come and gone. We had a little bit of another issue in Washington, D.C. that took everyone's attention away from it. But I'm pretty sure that vote was like razor thin that they won, which is kind of crazy when you think like, I'm a young and upcoming Democrat and I barely beat this like old corrupt Republican. So are we celebrating? I don't know. Politicians make promises all the time. I didn't see that as being a whole lot different. I know. You're right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm being a little bit unfair because all politicians say like, I'm going to get you the living wage that you deserve. So kind of that's the same thing. We'll see. So GA came and went. There was a good voter turnout, quite a bit of an increase over the general, so it was pretty good. 0.6, I think it was. Oh wow, I think 0.5 might be like the recount. It might, I'm not sure. We had GA that came and went, so now the Senate is split apparently. When that happens, the Democrats technically control it because that means Kamala Harris is the deciding vote, and a lot of other changes happen in that case. Obviously Chuck Schumer becomes majority leader, I think. Let's see, I don't know for sure. Hang on, I see my internet is doing its like weirdo thing again. Let me drop it down to 15,000. The most important one in my opinion is that Bernie Sanders becomes the chairman of the budget committee, which I'm sure is going to scare the shit out of every single conservative Republican. He is the chairman of the budget committee, apparently. We'll see. So I'm very excited about that because, he's not going to be shy about giving people money. Let's get back to live. Got past the buffering. Okay, cool. Yeah, it was slowing down for a second. YouTube also auto transcodes for you, so you can always like drop down the resolution. I have it set up to 1440. So, do we go straight to the insurrection? Okay, so in between GA and building during that time, between GA and when this issue happened 3 days ago or whatever, there were a number of GOP senators and congressmen or Congress people who were saying they would contest the election results. Now, it depends on how you think about it, but let me tell you some facts about that, okay? Objecting to electors is within the rights of a congressperson, okay? That's not like them just making shit up or going outside the law on it. That's whatever you call it, like a duly appointed, how do you know what you call it? Tool that a congressman or a congressperson can use. They can object the certification results. It has happened times before. I'm sorry, hang on a second. It has happened a few times before. Actually twice with George W. Bush in 2000 and 2004. I think 23 or so senators objected to George W. Bush in 2000, citing the Florida results. That eventually got nowhere, but that's fine. That's within their right to object. In 2005, 2004, 2005, they also, I think like 2 or 3 senators objected to George W. Bush a second time, citing vote discrepancies in Ohio. One of those senators is Barbara Lee, who is like a progressive champion, ally, whatever. She's progressive. So she was one of the few that objected in 2005. In 2016, some more objected. I want to say it was some of the progressive caucus as well. And they were objecting to, I think this one was Russian interference is what they said. So this is the Russians that were influencing or hacking the machines or stacking the ballot boxes. I don't know exactly the claim, but in 2016 they did the same thing. So objecting to votes is not something completely uncommon. It has happened at least 4 times in the last 5 elections. So, let me think. 2020, 16, 12, 8, 4, 0. Yeah, so it's happened at least half the elections that we've had in the last 2 decades. And you're right. Yeah, it's not new, and it is within their rights for certain. So, some group of senators and congresspeople, or whoever you want to, whatever, have decided to object to the election results this time. Now, specifically, they're citing some issues that they've seen in Pennsylvania in particular. I think they're just calling out the election results from Pennsylvania as a whole. It may be specific counties. I don't remember exactly, but I think there's like 6 senators and like 20 something House members, if I'm not mistaken. Some of the more prolific senators, Josh Hawley is one of them, senator from Missouri. Ted Cruz is another one, senator from Texas, and there's a few more. How do I stop this buffering? This is really irritating. It's like it keeps jumping back and forth the buffer. Do I need to drop it down to like 13? Give me a second, guys. You try 13 maybe? See what happens? So they decided to object, or that they will object, and they've been talking about it for about a week. Maybe longer. Comes time for the day that they're going to have this certifying the electorate, certifying the election results. The senators that said they would disagree or object did so. Same thing with the House members, and apparently it's set up where like just a couple of House members can't do it. It has to be some House members, and they have to get it sponsored by some senators as well. So it's like a tag team thing, so you can't just do it like willy-nilly. There have been a lot of DDoS attacks in the past week, kind of flying under the radar with everything going on. Oh, okay. I didn't know about that. But yeah, I see it. It keeps saying buffering out. We'll see. It says stream is healthy now, but it seems like it's going in and out. So they objected. On the same day, President Donald Trump had a rally. Um, During that rally, President Trump spoke, and there was, I think, a couple thousand, maybe people in D.C. And their thing was they were going to protest, kind of protest the election results, but also protest, or I did see some language saying like support the Congress people that were planning on objecting. So it's like they're protesting results and they're trying to support the people that are objecting. That's at least what and I'm sure some just went to see Donald Trump, right? And some apparently may have gone to cause violence. We'll talk about that in a moment. During that rally, this comes after days and days of Donald Trump saying, oh, they're trying to steal the election from me. We need to not let this happen. That kind of language. That's not me making shit up. If you follow Donald Trump's language at all or have seen any of his tweets, that's probably exactly how he talks. Stop the steal. They're trying to take away your beloved leader from the great society, or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So it is true that he did not tell his rally goers, his supporters, to storm the Capitol building and kill people. Certainly he did not say that. That's unequivocally true. Did he say language that was like borderline? I think he said something like, we're gonna march over there and we're gonna make our voices heard that we don't agree with this election results. Getting somebody hyped up, getting the crowd hyped up. I think that's fair for everyone to probably agree with that. Okay. He didn't say anything specifically, go kill someone, go storm the Capitol. He also didn't say like, oh, just go home. Okay, see you later. So somewhere in between there. The rally finished up. He's responsible for raising the temperature, but not the crowd's actions. Now, that's a good description. That's a great description. Thank you, Danny. Responsible for raising the temperature of the crowd. You could think of it something like, if you've ever been to a political rally, I was at several of Bernie Sanders. They have people that speak before Bernie and they get the crowd real hyped up, and then Bernie comes out and really gets them going. They don't usually just leave on a whimper and like, all right, well, I'm done talking. See you later. But they're, that's their thing, is to get the crowd energized and get the supporters, hyped to support further. Okay, that's likely most of the goal of these political rallies. It's possible that in combination with like the events that were happening right at the same time, with Donald Trump's language throughout the week saying like, hey, they're trying to steal the office, or they're trying to whatever, they're trying to take over the country. All these things added together equals violence that happened afterwards at the Capitol building. So the rally finished up. A group of rally goers, I'm not going to say all. First of all, I wasn't there. I don't know. But if they're talking about thousands and thousands of people at the rally, and then, you see some of the videos that look like a few hundred charged to the Capitol and started storming the gates and stuff. That's obviously a certain percentage, and I think that's somewhat indicative of how things are in the political world. There's a certain amount of Trump supporters that can be rallied to violence, and obviously, certainly there's a certain amount of Trump supporters that do believe in some racist messages and things, and ideas. At the same time, on the left, there's leftists that are easy to rally to violence. So there's always a portion of nuts in like each crowd, right? There's always a portion of crazy people. I don't want to completely hand wave the entire Trump supporter base as being like, oh, they're all crazy and racist. That's just not true. It's just factually incorrect. So doing it again, not receiving enough video. I don't understand. Try jacking this up even more. Let's see what happens. So a certain portion of these guys and girls marched over to the Capitol. I think the Madison building, I'm not totally sure. Let me jack this up to 18, see what we get. Give me 1 second. I think I have a guest. Okay, sorry about that. I thought I heard someone like, my son's not gonna like bang on. Uh-oh, see some stuff happening. My son's not gonna bang on my door, but he'll lightly scratch at it until I come to the door. I don't know, man. Getting some weird results tonight. Lower it back down to 13K. We'll just deal with the buffering, and I won't be dropping any frames then, so it'll be better in just a second. Follow the same logic with Bernie and that lunatic that shot the Congress people a while back, or with Obama and the guy who killed the cops. Yeah, not responsible, but they raised the temperature. Yeah, it's unfortunate. The most extreme is usually the loudest of the bunch too. Yeah, it sucks. You have violent, bigoted fools who are prone to violence on either side of the aisle. Difficult to acknowledge sometimes, but it's there and it isn't going away. That's for certain. That is for certain. So, before I was so rudely interrupted. So, what happened was some of these rally goers walked over to the Capitol. There's some video of police officers sort of letting them in without trying to stop them. There's also the exact opposite of that, with police officers like violently trying to hold them. That's the wrong description. Trying to hold them back from getting inside, doing their job. And them being, violence towards them. So some of the rally goers started hitting them and throwing things at them. There's some really awful video of a police officer being beaten with a flag, I think, or something like that. Just terrible. So they went over there. Some were let in. Some were causing violence, breaking windows, trying to get in. It's tough to really understand what the total goal was of it. Like, the Senate was in session, the Congress is in session. So like, there's some pictures and videos of things with guys in like full tactical gear, having zip tie handcuffs and things. And there's other language you can hear, like saying, "Hey, where are these Congress people?" They're trying to find Congress people and stuff. It's potential they were looking to harm people. It's just disgusting. Yeah, it's real, man. The one cop who died was an avid Trump supporter too. Yeah, I saw that. It's fucking disgusting. And this is where I say, where like you get some people that will do that all Blue Lives Matter flag, right, for the cops, it basically sort of in contest to Black Lives Matter, right? They have Blue Lives Matter, proclaiming that their support for police officers is the most important thing, all this kind of stuff. And then like to see police officers just be like bludgeoned to death or to be attacked and things, it doesn't really make much sense if you're thinking like rationally about it. But the people that would do something like storming the Capitol, those aren't rational people, right? Those are violent people. Imagine storming like a federal building when if you have the mantra of police lives matter and government is, this is the good thing and all this stuff, like it just doesn't make much sense. There's some reports out today that 2 officers have been suspended now from the Capitol Police Force. One for like being on video and like hanging out with the protesters or the violent terrorists, whatever language you want to call them. I would agree with it. And another one of them, like, he's wearing his MAGA hat and he was like literally on video showing them around, like, oh, this is where some people are, this is where they do this. It's like, these people just broke into the Capitol, man. Like, it's not. I was thinking about this the other day. Like, if I was in that position, there were hundreds of like obviously amped up, violent people storming through the gates where I'm like a guard at. If I happen to be all alone, like, I don't know what I would have done. You know what I mean? Think about that. You like in the face of hundreds of people who are very violent, looking for different things. Would you be the person that still told them no and held them back, or would you just be like, all right, man, like, I kind of would rather be alive. Like, this is a tough situation. I'm not going to pass judgment on anyone for being like, you know what, maybe I should just step back and like not endanger, like I have kids and shit. You know what I mean? It's tough, right? In those circumstances. I'd like to think that I'd be like, no, what you're doing is wrong. Stand back, or whatever. But you never know. That's why training exists and things like that. So, but 2 officers were suspended. because of their actions during that. There was a lot of other video of it didn't look like Capitol Police. It looked like personal security or maybe the sergeant at arms and his team, like defending the Senate, or just defending Congress, the Congress halls. They were like barricading doors, and that's how the one woman was shot and killed, actually, on video. The guard or whomever was sort of like, tactically behind a door, angled at where they were trying to pound through the barricade to get in. And he's protecting like elected officials of the country. You know what I mean? Like, he says, stop breaking in, and then you don't. Like, you're gonna get fucking shot. Like, sorry. I must tell you, like, you're, not only trespassing, but what you're doing is illegal. And a armed guard who services the Capitol is telling you to stop. You should probably stop. So it's terrible that anyone died. It's disgusting, but in some of those cases, it's got to be like, it's either I shoot that person or maybe like 10 people die. So I don't know. It's what a terrible situation to be in. Dude with the zip tied was legit there to take hostages. There's no other reason. Yeah. Yep, for sure. Read a lot of debate whether it was an insurrection or a coup. I believe it was an insurrection. I don't actually know the technical definition difference between the two. There's another kind of cool story about a guy, an officer that was there, that he basically, like, the whole mob was coming up the stairs looking for Congress people, and they were like shouting, and I guess this guard was like one of the last people sort of in between the mob and these Congress people who were hiding like down the hallway, and the guard was just like, no, everyone's this way, and was like directing the mob like a different way. So that's another instance of like, I mean, that's like a hero. There should be a statue of that guy. That's a fucking hero. That, he could have saved like dozens of officials' lives and their aides and shit. It could be what happened, right? It could have been his decision between that and us on, watching in horror as there's hostages taken and, potentially executed or whatever at the Capitol building. Like, that would have been ridiculous. So, that dude is awesome. And I wish I knew his name. I saw a picture of him earlier. What else? There was a cop that committed suicide on the Capitol Police Force. I just saw that today. One of the officers that was there, I guess, committed suicide like 2 days ago. I'm not sure if that was related. It's tough to not think it wasn't related, right? After this whole big thing that just happened. But that's fucking too bad as well, man. So basically there was some terrible shit that happened at the Capitol. Shit that most Americans would look at and go, wait, this shit only happens in countries in other places in the world. Nope, it happens here too. And what was the aftermath of it? What happened after? So the protesters or terrorists or violence or whatever word term you want to use, they were turned away eventually. Everybody went home. Donald Trump tweeted out, after probably way too fucking long because he's a terrible person, tweeted everybody go home. Eventually everybody went home. I did find a funny video today of a gentleman who is at the rally and causing a scene and storming the gates of the Capitol, was put on the no-fly list out of Dulles, I think, or something like that. And he had like a meltdown at the airport over it. But anyways, after that, there were calls immediately for Donald Trump to resign this presidency. So the technicality of it is that a coup is where a group tries to overthrow an existing government to install their own, whereas insurrection is just revolting against an established government. Okay, so I would agree with insurrection more than a coup under that definition. Thank you for that, by the way. So there were calls for President Donald Trump to resign. There was calls for impeachment immediately, all citing the incitement of violence. And as we talked about earlier, incitement of an insurrection. As we mentioned at the start of the show, he didn't help anything with his language. There's a lot of different factors that came into play, and hyping up the crowd and getting them amped up is tough to... there's an argument there, right? Like, he should have been able to choose his words differently. He should have felt the temperature of the room, been able to calm things down. He should have tweeted out earlier during the insurrection. He should have done more. He should have allowed the police force. There was some talk about, well, was the military called in? Was the National Guard called in to help? Was their backup delayed for one reason or another? I think that's all hearsay. I don't think we've heard anything definitive or seen proof of anything. But certainly there wasn't a lot of backup available at that, for those 20 minutes or whatever it was. I think had Trump already been removed from office and the riot protest took place, then we would classify it as an attempted coup. But really, I think it's semantics. Yeah, true. It's still fucking god awful, no matter how you slice it. There's calls for him to resign. There is now impeachment articles that I think are going on the floor tomorrow to be voted on to impeach Donald Trump and get him removed from office. It'll be tough for people to vote against it, just considering the climate right now in the country. So we'll see what happens. There is other ways to go about it. There's a lot of calls to use the 25th Amendment, which basically the vice president and the cabinet, and I'm not sure exactly who it is, but there has to be a certain amount of elected officials, I believe, that declare the president is unfit for one reason or another to carry out his duties or her duties. So that is an option. Nancy Pelosi and some other elected officials have been trying to get Mike Pence to basically say that's enough, invoke the 25th Amendment, and that, I believe, is the quickest way. If you want to remove a president, the quickest way to do it is to get the 25th Amendment invoked and basically just take all the power from him and he gets thrown out. That's it. You can do the impeachment as well. That's the second fastest. However, as we said, that takes a lot of voting. Okay. You have to get the right people. The Congress has to be called back into session because right now they're in recess. It's a whole thing. Okay. And considering that Donald Trump has about 9 days left in office, how quick do you think the Senate's going to be to get everyone back together? I don't know. I don't have real high hopes for impeachment getting voted through because of that. That's the second way. The third way is obviously to just let his term expire. Like, he is out in 9 days. I understand the argument of he's too fucking dangerous to be there. I don't foresee him doing anything like launching nukes. I know there's a lot of like crazed fear about that kind of stuff. I think the guy is, first of all, he's an egomaniac. And he's very, very selfish. He's very vain. He cares mostly about his own image. So he feels like he was slighted in some way. He's kind of a sore loser. He's just not like a great person, right? So I think, I understand it. Like, maybe it's best to let's just, for the image of the country as well, but let's just, prevent anything like super shitty from happening if there's a possibility of that. I know that he announced in his cabinet that he has more like pardons coming. I hope Julian Assange and Edward Snowden, that'd be amazing. But he has some things he's still gonna do, and it's just such a weird time. Here's the deal with the articles though. Senate won't be back in session until the 19th. And at that point, they won't have to vote on it until 1 p.m. the next day, but that will be inauguration. Right. And I think Mitch McConnell has said, like, we're not really calling everyone back for this. We're all coming back in a week. Like, what's he going to do in 7 days? Like that. I think that's what Mitch is thinking. I do also understand, like, are we really going to allow, like, that kind of shit to happen and for the guy not to be removed? I mean, that's crazy. It does set a precedent in some way. I think it sets a precedent the other way as well. So it's kind of a sticky situation that I hope our elected officials can just deal with it, figure it out. I think ideally it should just be Mike Pence that's like, listen, man, 25th Amendment, just take a seat. I'll finish it up. And what's Mike Pence going to do? There's 9 days. what's he really gonna do? Like, he's gonna sign, like, you know how when you close on a house, you gotta sign all the paperwork, you know, for the closing deeds and all that stuff. That's basically what you're doing. Like, in the last week of your presidency, you're just signing papers to transition to the next administration. Like, that's all you're doing. Doing anything else. There's no big thing that's happening with a president who's about to leave the office in 7 days. So in my opinion, just let's let everyone, let's be the quickest way possible. It would be great if Donald Trump would agree to it and just say, like, you know what, you're right, let's just have Mike Pence do it, whatever, we'll do what's good for the country, that kind of stuff, and we'll just move the fuck on. The more troubling thing that's happening now, in my opinion, is this call for all supporters of Donald Trump to resign. And I'll explain what I'm thinking. I don't think he should resign. That's cool. I mean, everyone has their own opinion and stuff. I personally think he should either immediately resign or do the 25th, just because it's probably the easiest way to get past all this shit. That would completely disarm everything. Completely. But there is legislation now, a House resolution that's being pushed by Representative Cori Bush, and you might know her because I've spoken about her a lot. She's a brand new congresswoman from Missouri, from St. Louis, I think. She was just sworn in like a few days ago, I think. I see it buffering again. It's so irritating. Just sworn in a few days ago, and she introduced a resolution that will it calls for the expulsion. I want to try and get these words right without reading it. It calls for the expulsion of Congress members that supported the president in his insurrection, essentially. That supported, and I guess that's the second part, that supported him in that they were going to object to certifying the election results. That's probably the most accurate way. As I said, there was 6 senators and like 20 something House members that were objecting or going to or did object to the election results, as is their duty or privilege or whatever. What do you call it? As in their toolbox of things to do as Congress people. So Cori Bush put out this resolution that basically says they should all be thrown out of Congress because they are defiling democracy by objecting to the electors. I am, if you have seen the show before, if you know me, I consider myself a progressive, a leftist, not a liberal. I think there's a distinction there that is important to discuss. But that nominally means I support most progressive candidates. Bernie Sanders, Cori Bush, I did support. People like AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Pramila Jayapal, Katie Porter, Jamal Bowman, all these people, okay? I saw the House resolution come out, and I gotta say, like, I don't agree with it. And that's weird, because normally I agree with most of the things these guys are trying to get done. Medicare for all, generally protect people, Green New Deal, infrastructure programs, so all that kind of stuff, canceling debt, whatever. I cannot get on board with that final step, with calling for the ejection of elected officials, for a number of reasons, and I'll explain. Number one, they were elected by voters, okay? So by voting to kick them out, you're basically telling the supporters of that person or the people that elected them that their votes are irrelevant. They don't get to make choices. You get to make choices. So I think that sets kind of a dangerous precedent, to be honest. Another thing is, election results have been objected before. Senator Barbara Lee is still a senator. She objected to like 2 out of 3 of the last elections that were objected to. Should she have been thrown out at that time for doing that because she is defiling democracy? should the people that opposed the election results in the 2000 race between Gore and Bush, which everyone knows about that story, and it came down to like 20 votes or whatever in one county in Florida. Should the 20 senators and however many House members that objected to that have been stripped of their congresshood, congressional status, and thrown out? Their voters rejected, saying that who you voted for is incorrect and where your vote was no good here. Should that retroactively apply then? Now, I've seen the argument to that stance being, well, there was a bunch of lawsuits in Pennsylvania, so that means that Senator Hawley, for instance, Ted Cruz, for instance, all these other people, the court said that there was no fraud, so therefore there was no fraud, and that should be taken as fact by the senators that are objecting. Now, the senators were specifically objecting to certain places in Pennsylvania, saying like there's some irrelevance or there's some inconsistency there. Now, I will just to state facts. In their objection, which by the way, I was reading about this, legally has to be written first. So they object orally in Congress. But before that, they have to submit a written objection. That's part of the rules of the Senate, you know, all these crazy archaic rules. They objected a written sort of objection that was handed in, but it was signed by Hawley, Cruz, all these other people. And the objection said that there's some inconsistencies, and we need to preserve democracy. We need to find out the truth. In order to do so, they would like to appoint a special election council. Okay, this, or I forget the exact words, like special election, I think it was council, something like that, election board council, something, that would be chosen by Congress, the election officials that would monitor the review. Would be chosen by all of Congress, the people that sat on the board, and they would inspect and just, he said investigate some inconsistencies that they saw in Pennsylvania. So I think it was committee. Yes, I think that's right, Danny. So these people, these objectors weren't saying, nope, the the election was nonsense and Donald Trump was president and throw Joe Biden out. That's not what they were saying. What they were saying was, let's have a committee or a board that's going to go investigate what happened. That's it. And they said in the thing, like, if they come back saying that, nope, we investigated, everything's kosher, we're good to proceed, then they'd be like, okay, that's it. They did the special investigation, it's fine. So the importance of that aspect is that this wasn't like a blind coup or something where a couple of senators are saying, no, that's not my president, that's my president, and I don't care what the voters said. They're saying, like, let's form a committee to go look at it. And if they come back saying one way, fine. If they come back saying the other way, fine. But let's just have somebody look at it. Again, the argument is that the courts looked at it. I didn't mean to do that. I do agree with the courts. I don't think there was any fraud or anything. But if there is some evidence out there, that something might have been a little fishy, is there harm in taking a look? When they originally submitted their objection, they said it would be like 4 days or 5 days or something, so it would be done by the inauguration. I'm 90% sure. So it's not like it would push the inauguration and besmirch Joe Biden or whatever. And after seeing that, I had like a tough time trying to convince myself to line up with with Congresswoman Bush and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. I couldn't really get back there, where I was like, so they just want to take a look at, they just want to have someone, a third party who's chosen by all of Congress, to go take a look. That's so bad that you want to throw out a sitting senator who was voted in by American people. That's the part where I sort of like disconnected from it, where it seemed like what they were asking for was rather minute versus the punishment that will now be inflicted on them and their voters. I mean, they're senators. They had to have gotten like, I mean, what's the average senator vote? Like 1 million people, 3 million people. That's the penalty for saying that we should have a committee that just, let's just take a look at the election results. The penalty is 3 million voters are expunged and that senator is thrown out. That, it just seems so extreme to me. There can't be like a just go talk shit about him in the press. like, like normal, like go on Twitter, this guy's an asshole. There, that was their punishment. I think there was definitely fraud. There's been fraud in every presidential election for decades, but it's so small that it wouldn't make a difference. Exactly. I think that's true. I think that, there's a lot of people that talk about voter fraud and stuff, and then you look at some of the statistical backing of that, and it's like, yes, there is voter fraud, but the percentage scale of it is so small that even if there was 100 times that much voter fraud, it would be negligible compared to the whole group of votes. So I kind of understand what you're saying. The issue is finding tangible fraud tantamount to the difference in the election results. Right. Which I think like this investigative committee probably could have found out pretty quickly. And by the way, I'm not even saying necessarily that, yep, whatever they propose, let's do it. That's not even what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they proposed a potential solution where it wasn't just completely reject or throw out. It was a compromise. Let's get a group in there to just take a look. And the punishment for even suggesting a committee look at it is you are thrown out of Congress. That's where I completely disconnected from the progressives who were pushing it, because I can't. It doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense. To me, it looks like, honestly, and by the way, again, I'm a leftist. I consider myself a supporter of the people who are pushing this resolution. To me, it looks like petty, like you're just trying to attack and you see a weak point and that's what you're doing. That's what it looks like. I think that also it happens to be targeted to Josh Hawley and Senator Cruz, but I think they have mostly been shouting those names, even though there was about 30 others, by the way, about 30 other objectors. The only names that Josh Hawley and Cori Bush have called out is Josh Hawley and Senator Cruz. And I think that some of that reason is that, with good reason, it is, they are, is it wary or like nervous about Josh Hawley coming up on the right? Because whether or not you agree that he is a populist or he's just faking it or whatever, he has a populist thread in his candidacy. And he's doing what he can to sort of approach that broad Trump supporter, right? The broad group, and that's a large group of the GOP. So they look at him, I think, as competition. And at this moment, they're going, he fucked up. There's a potential that we can cut him down now for fear of him growing to a point where we can't compete anymore. To me, honestly, that's kind of what it looks like. I could absolutely see that being the case for them putting together this resolution. I don't like it. I don't want the people I support to be that sort of ruthless and petty that like they would cut down another populist mindset candidate, even if they were on the right. I don't want that to be the case. I hope it's not. But we have a problem. Cori Bush did an interview with The Intercept publication online, good publication. I think it was with Ada Chavez, who's a great journalist. She did an interview, and in the interview, I have it right here. In the interview, it says, "Can you tell me when and how the idea for your resolution came about? Is it something you were thinking about before entering Congress?" That's the question they asked Cori Bush, Congresswoman Bush. And she said, "Personally, I started thinking about it before we were sworn in. We were thinking about just making sure that there was some type of consequence. And so we kind of played around with that with what we thought that should be for a few days. Once we were sworn in, we pretty much had the idea. Now that's a direct quote from Congresswoman Bush. The problem there is that, number one, when did they announce the resolution? It wasn't before they were sworn in. It was like 24 hours after the insurrection occurred. When did they announce it? It was like right in conjunction with a picture of Josh Hawley leaking on the internet of him doing one of these to some protesters, okay? People look at it and immediately go, oh, that's white power shit or whatever. He's doing racist sign language to protesters to get them psyched up. They're trying to equate that picture of Josh Hawley with him also inciting violence. So they coupled this support for objecting the results of the election with inciting violence. You'll notice that in a lot of their first tweets, Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, AOC, they were saying that Senator Hawley should be ashamed and should be expelled from Congress because he incited violence at the Capitol and because he's objecting the results. The resolution was created 4, 5, 6 days before that rally, before they objected officially to the votes. So the only actual reason they had for putting the resolution together in the first place was that he was objecting to the results. Had nothing to do with the violence because the violence hadn't occurred yet. So conflating the two, they're just trying to basically say, oh yeah, he's a violent thug and he's leading those violent thug people. It's dishonest. I think it's calculated like misleading or like obfuscation of reason. The resolution only specifically says because they're objecting to the votes, because that's when it was written. But all their language since then has been they're inciting violence because they're objecting to the votes. I just can't get there. I can't agree with that. I kind of wish I did. I feel like it would make my life easier. I could just say, nah, I'm a leftist, fuck it. I wouldn't have to like question the officials on the left as well. Again, I do agree with Donald Trump being removed, preferably through 25th Amendment. I do agree with that. I don't agree with throwing out sitting senators because they objected to the election results, trying to create a committee. I don't agree with that. I don't think there's enough reason to it, and in my opinion, it looks targeted, like an attack, and petty. Hawley is the more polished Trump. I think that's really what it is. I honestly, it's you're playing for the other team, and you see they're gonna have a star home run hitter in a year or in 4 years. So do what you can to take away that star home run hitter before then, and in 4 years, you'll be on top. That's what it looks like to me. As a leftist, as a leftist, that's what it looks like to me. They really don't want to play the game of who's inciting violence here. That kind of statement is, if watered down, can hit a lot of politicians then. Yeah, exactly. 1 minute, I need some water here. Anyways, that resolution is going through. I somehow doubt it ever comes to the light of day. They're not going to kick anybody out. It sets like an insane precedent, right? That other elected officials can throw out other elected officials if for anything. They can put together a resolution, throw them out. Could AOC have been ejected from Congress over defund the police? Defund the police was sort of the mantra or the language of the summer protests, some of which turned violent, okay? Some of which. Just like we said about the Trump rally earlier, not everyone that was at the peaceful rally listening to Donald Trump went to the Capitol to do the violence, okay? Not all of them, a percentage. I think that same exact logic can be applied to Black Lives Matter protests this summer, in that peaceful protests in a lot of places, and then some small group commits the violence, some small percentage. If that is punishable by language and action like objecting to votes for this case now, could it retroactively be applied and you could say, AOC, because you tweeted out support for defunding the police, you were turning up the temperature on the violence from that small subset of protesters this summer? Could it play the same way? I don't think it's a big stretch of logic to get from A to B. Okay? So that's why I think like that's not exactly a good precedent for that, right? Just because you don't agree with them doesn't mean they're wrong and they should be punished, which is, by the way, an enormous problem in our current society. Anyone who doesn't think like you is an asshole. That's how society has worked these days. If you don't have the right belief, then you're cast aside. I had a tweet over this weekend espousing support for another streamer who she has some like I'm not actually totally sure where she is on the spectrum. I know she's a little bit more right, a little bit more conservative views. Basically came out saying like, I voted for Trump, here's a bunch of reasons why, and she was pretty much attacked and bullied for admitting that she voted for Trump. It's like, if you don't agree, if you don't fit the mold of how you should be, then go fuck yourself. I mean, that's just not how we should be behaving. Not as adults, not as co-citizens of the same country, right? Not as human beings. We shouldn't be treating other people like that. Because someone thinks differently than you, then you should be looking down on them. They really don't want to play the game of who is inciting violence here. That kind of statement, if watered down, can have a lot of people say, oh yeah, which is basically what we just said. So we have that resolution now, and we'll see, I guess, how it goes. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, and I hope it doesn't, because I think that would it's a big issue in the future if it does. A couple other things that were sort of important to talk about. Therein lies the fundamental problem right now. People are too readily labeling the other side as malicious or evil over their political affiliation. Yeah, it becomes like a sports team, right? Like, I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, so fuck all Patriots fans. Now, I know that's like a crude version of what we're talking about, but that's essentially it. It's a team game. Only your team is right. Only your players are right, and the other players cannot possibly be right. It's kind of ridiculous. Some other kind of important stuff that happened. Wall Street Journal over the weekend, I think, posted a new article in response to some of the violence that we saw at the Capitol. They called it right-wing extremism. I don't know why I have problems saying that. Right-wing? Yeah, right-wing extremism. And in saying that this is terrorism. Okay. But then they also go on to say that Joe Biden agrees with that, and that there should be a new law, right? A new law to combat, start up or develop or put into place a war on domestic terrorism. Okay. Now, as I said somewhere near the beginning, I don't necessarily disagree with the label of terrorist on the people that stormed into the Capitol. Those are violent thugs. I don't give a shit if they believe left, right, center. Doesn't matter to me. Storming into the Capitol and hurting people, killing police officers, like, that shit is wrong. I don't give a fuck what side you're on. So you're a terrorist if you're storming into government buildings and killing police officers. You are. You're not a patriot. Fuck you. You're just not. So They want to, or Joe Biden has said, and his cabinet has said, that they want to start up a war on domestic terror. And of course, they're going to cloak it in protecting Americans. They're going to protect the Capitol. They're going to protect police officers. They're going to protect all of us from the scary right wing extremism. Okay. That's how the article was written. Now, immediately your brain should go, what about left wing extremism? Can be just as violent. Okay. There's extremism all over the place on these spectrums. And you would be absolutely right. This in no way will ever only be targeted towards, like, whatever they want to call it, white supremacy, whatever it is. Okay, that is the target now, or what they think is a target now. It will immediately be applied to the left, to the right. It won't matter. The only thing that will matter is that it is applied to people who are trying to, I call it, unbalance the status quo, or to bring some, I call it like economic justice. You could say upsetting the status quo. You could say making big changes, and for people, anyone that's trying to change the system will be labeled an extremist and will come under fire from this war on domestic terror. Those of you who are old jerks like me will know that the war on terror didn't go so well in terms of surveillance for Americans. Okay. After 9/11, there was a war on terror that was enacted, and the target was Al-Qaeda, right? That was the Osama bin Laden, his group, his terrorist cell. I don't know exactly how to label it, but some group of terrorists that were going to commit terror against the United States. A good thing, right? It's couched in a good idea. Let's protect Americans. No one's going to disagree with that. Okay, let's protect Americans. Great. The cost of that was, outside of dollars, there's probably trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. But the cost of that was more than likely hundreds of thousands of people dying in other countries in search of, or as a collateral damage of, a war against terror. But also, American citizenry just sort of turned over all their privacy rights in a way, right? Espionage Act, Patriot Act, all this kind of stuff came up where it just like gave the government these near unlimited surveillance powers domestically, because they had to protect people from terrorist cells in the United States. Edward Snowden is now a enemy of the state, right? Because he is a whistleblower against the NSA program that's basically spying on everyone in the country all the time. It's so hard to have this argument, right? It's so hard to have a discussion like this, because it can easily be diffused, if you're not careful, by someone saying, oh, so you're just okay with buildings blowing up and Americans dying. I'm not okay with that. Does it have to be both? Like, either we can't have some sort of privacy and freedom because a building might blow up. That's the cost. You can see how that very quickly turns into a complete police state. Yes, you're safer. Safer in some terms, because are you really safer if there's like a police state constantly looking over your shoulder? But you give up every freedom that you have, which I find interesting from the people that proclaim to love freedom. It's concerning to me when I hear this sort of language. Certainly when I hear any combination of the word war on something, and specifically terror, is what is concerning to me. All that means is let's take our endless pot of money and dump it into Raytheon or Boeing or Northrop Grumman or Lockheed Martin. Let's put all the money there. That's what that means. First of all, that means a whole shitload of people are going to die overseas, right? Lots and lots of people are going to die in countries that can't fucking defend themselves. That's what happens every single time. And we're going to continue to give up any sort of freedom we have. And by the way, I'm not one of these guys that's out here saying I need to own 15 guns because I have the reason to own 15 guns and all this kind of like fuck yeah, don't tread on me, freedom type stuff. That's not who I am. I'm for government involvement in a lot of different ways. Okay, the Patriot Act and these sort of espionage acts and things in the name of war on drugs, war on terror, anything we do a war on, we're just fucking terrible at it. Anytime we say war on something, we're like cursing ourselves to failure. It's sad because the libertarian, I really only have one person on my team, good old Justin Amash. He has a couple of points that actually aren't too bad, and he did vote against a lot of the. He tends to vote with progressives. I noticed. I was looking at some of the vote rolls. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to the Patriot Act 2.0 that is going to come from this recent incident at the Capitol. Exactly. And it will always be couched in, we're going to keep you safe. That's why you can't search for anything. You can't read certain books. You can't watch certain movies because you might think bad thoughts. You can't say anything on Twitter or Instagram or Parler anymore, right? Does anyone actually go on Parler? Like, that's gone. Reddit, nothing. Can't say anything. Can't have open thought there because that, you know where open thought leads. You know what happens when you start thinking about freedom. Start to revolt against the system. Terrorism. That's the jump. That's the jump that'll make. Now, I know that's like an extreme example and I'm sort of being funny, but there are books written about this, that the control starts small and then evolves up. This last week we saw Donald Trump lose his access to a lot of different social media. Could be for good reason. I think everyone can admit, okay, whether or not you support Donald Trump, the guy's an idiot on Twitter. Okay, so maybe it's kind of a good thing that he can't like tweet for his own benefit, but he's kind of an idiot. That being said, I'm not a big fan of censorship in 99.9% of cases. I'm not a big fan of that, because you're replacing, okay, again, it's a tough discussion, and I should get like a panel on to actually like discuss, because I'm just sort of talking at you. What is the trade-off? What are you willing to give up to have Donald Trump off of Twitter? What are you willing to give up to have Parler? And by the way, Parler, I think, was like it's sort of been explained to me as like a right-wing chat board in some way, or like a right-wing Twitter, but I don't know. But it seemed like, you know, you could just kind of say whatever you want on there. It wasn't really moderated, I think. And of course, like, if you don't moderate shit, like, it's the fucking internet, like, there's gonna be bad shit on there. But if you continually tear down these types of things and these these different expressions, if you outlaw certain words, if you take away certain people's right to discuss things, I mean, I hope the left, because I feel this way, I hope as a leftist and some of my fellow leftists feel the same way, like you're like half a step away from banning any leftist thought. Universal healthcare? That is some communist talk. We're not gonna have that. We can't have any leftists on here. I mean, how close? That's the thing, like, all this stuff remains adjacent, right? Like, you can say, oh, that's white supremacy stuff. And then the white supremacy circle starts to grow a little bit. And okay, now the New York Post is in the circle. Like, oh, okay, why was the New York Post banned off Twitter? Because they published an article about Hunter Biden. A newspaper with, like, I think the quote was like the 5th highest circulation in the country was banned off Twitter earlier this year because they posted an article about Joe Biden's son. It wasn't white supremacy. It wasn't anything like that. They posted an article about Joe Biden's or Hunter Biden's emails, and they were banned from Twitter. So now this area where it's like, oh, we're just going to ban hate and white supremacy and racist shit, And then this circle keeps going a little bit, and all of a sudden, now the New York Post is gone. It's like, oh, that's weird. New York Post, okay. I didn't really like him. I didn't really read it, but it seems to be a little bit strange. And then it keeps growing. And what else does it take in? What else does it take in? It's taking half of Reddit. All of a sudden, no, Reddit, that's a little too much open thought. We can't really have that. We need to also take in some hashtags off Twitter. We can't have certain hashtags. People can search some stuff. We can't allow that. Like, just think of how that keeps growing and how consistently closer it gets to eliminating any sort of free thought. I'm all for protecting people and keeping people safe, but there has to be a boundary, right? Where all of a sudden your freedom is gone. What if like the internet all of a sudden became locked down where you couldn't even type in certain words, your computer would shut off or something? Like, I know that's extreme. A lot of these movies, these dystopian futures, right? There's a lot of movies like that. These dystopian societies where people are just living in complete lockdown and they can't do anything. There's police forces everywhere monitoring your every move and watching all the time. It's not conspiracy talk. I'm just saying, like, there are certain steps that lead you to there. And it's a little bit ironic too, because in a lot of times in those dystopian type futures and stories, they have fascist rulers, right? Totalitarian type rulers where they just sort of thought is policed and you can only believe in the one thing. You can't really talk about other things. It's like, that's essentially fascism, right? It is a little ironic when the left and people that I feel like are my allies on the left are consistently over the last 4 years calling Donald Trump a fascist, screaming at him, fascist government. It's authoritarian. He's trying to be a fascist. He's going to rule forever, take over the government, all that stuff. And the solution to that is to silence Trump, silence all of Trump's supporters and allies, anyone that agrees with him, anyone that ever supported him, and anyone that thinks in that line of thought, they are to be silenced and expelled from society. Does anyone see the irony in that? You're constantly proclaiming they are the fascists. And then ultimately, are you becoming the fascist by dictating what can and cannot be said or thought of? Is that level, I don't know if that level of introspection has been done on the left. Sorry, I'm catching up. It's like Twitter. It's not right wing though. They have really strict rules. They delete posts on the regular. I made a Parler account back in January of 2019. It's been around for that long? I don't know. I never heard about it. I didn't know. Like, I literally, like, I heard it existed about a week before it was banned. Like, I didn't even know what it was. To reserve my name in case, it became a potential rival to Twitter. It became right wing, though, because the alt-right migrated from Twitter. Okay. The big thing with Parler is that their mission statement, it said it would be moderated in support of the U.S. Constitution to protect your free speech, which leads people to think right wing. I guess I didn't know anything about it. That's good info. Thanks for that. Yeah, I had no idea. Anyway, so this is the stuff I've been thinking about lately. And part of that lack of introspection is where I've been sort of, I feel like what's happening is I'm still leftist, but a lot of the people that I thought were also leftist are actually much closer to the center than I think I thought. And I think there's a difference. So maybe there's different, so, you know, there's left and right? And then there's the center. What I think is interesting is if maybe there's like tiers on the left, right? I consider myself a leftist, but not in so much so that you're not allowed to think how you would like to think. You're not allowed to have opposing views, anything like that. and that I don't agree with some of the leftist sort of leadership. I know there's somewhat of a cult where if you agree with anything on the right, that you're automatically a fascist Trump supporter immediately. You're not a leftist anymore. If you agree with one or two policies of Trump, nope, Trump supporter. There's a lot of like cancel culture, outrage stuff. Like, you think that the left is very good at promoting themselves as like the anti-bullying crowd, right? The people that we're going to respect everyone. We're going to respect every sex, gender, lifestyle choice, sexual preference, color of skin, religion. They respect everything, right? That's what the left is about. Inclusion, or that's what they say. Inclusion. And by the way, this is where I start to differentiate myself, and I think those people are actually the liberals who are a little closer to center. People say the liberals, I think they're actually right. And a lot of times I hear like a right-wing pundit start talking about, oh, the liberals said this. Like, I've divorced myself from equating myself to a liberal because I don't want to be included in that group of people. I'm more left than they are. But what was I saying? Oh, so they're the most tolerant and the most open-minded and all this stuff. Except they're not open-minded to anyone that believes the opposite of what they believe, which is confusing to someone like me. And this goes back to the conversation I had about my friend, the content creator that was attacked for her voting for Donald Trump. They couldn't understand why she would do that. Well, when you present two shit options, but there's a great hypocrisy on the left that they are very tone deaf to. They're like a lot of liberals are blind to their own hypocrisy, which is strange. How dare you tell me what to do? You can't tell me how to think. How dare you tell me how to live my life and how that's wrong? I voted for Donald Trump. How dare you? What? You're disgusting. You're racist. I didn't vote for Donald Trump, nor am I racist, but I'm just saying. That's the level of like cognitive dissonance they get to, where they'll accuse other people of doing the exact thing that they're doing. It's very strange. I don't understand that about it. And I don't know if that same phenomena occurs on the right, actually. It might. And maybe it's just like, if the further out you go to the extremes, you find yourself in these type of situations. But I've noticed it more and more lately, and it's disheartening. A lot of the stuff has come up over the force the vote issue, which is another big thing that's come up lately. Jimmy Dore is a YouTube streamer. He's a political streamer. You know what? I think he does live shows. I don't know if he considers himself a streamer. I think he's just like, yeah, I have a YouTube channel. But it's pretty popular. He talks about a lot of leftist issues. He has guests on. He had Justin Jackson on. He's had was AOC ever on his show? He has a lot of, like, Ryan Grimm goes on his show, Davis Rhoda. But he used to be on the Young Turks, and he left the Young Turks when Cenk and Anna they had a disagreement with Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore is, in my opinion, more left than Cenk and Anna. I think they've started to stray the same way this liberal group has moved. And ironically, it's moving at about the same speed that AOC and the squad is moving towards the center as well, as they are aligning themselves with the Democrats, in my opinion. I think that Anna is a little bit between Dore and Cenk, but they're both sort of more right. So Jimmy Dore came up with this idea called Force the Vote, and he's kept it trending on Twitter for quite a while. Force the Vote is basically don't vote for Nancy Pelosi, which is another thing I forgot to talk about. Tell Nancy Pelosi you're not going to vote for her for speaker unless she puts Medicare for All on the floor for a vote. Okay? Medicare for All is a bill that's in the House. It has not been brought up for a vote yet. Nancy Pelosi has not allowed it to be a vote yet. She is the one person that can put it on the floor to vote. That's how the majority works. They generally consider themselves hosts. Thank you. Yeah, hosts. So this movement has been going on, and I consider myself in the Force the Vote crew, by the way. I'm a proponent, I'm a supporter of that drive. Brianna Joy Gray is in that group as well, former Bernie Sanders spokesperson. I don't know the exact, I think spokesperson or public face, PR person, public relations maybe. Communications director. I don't know what it is. But anyways, there's a lot of people that are supporting Force the Vote. Well, infamously, sort of one day, AOC tweeted back at Justin Jackson, who, by the way, is a football player for the Chargers, I think. And he was supporting Force the Vote, asking, like, why can't we get it for a vote? Well, AOC tweeted back saying, well, we can't do that because we have leverage to get different things done, right? We can get committee seats. We can get rules changes in the House. You can get rules changes for how things work. Those are like, she was calling them tangible things we can get back for our vote for Nancy Pelosi. That's what she was insinuating. And she was insinuating that the floor vote for Medicare for All was not worthy of leverage. It was performative, is what she called it. Well, the detraction to that, or the counter to that, is all of politics is performative. A great majority of it is. The objectors to the election certification this time in 2016 and 2005 and 2000, that was all performative. They were never going to get an election overturned. No one actually thought that. It's performative as an action. A lot of politics is. The stands, you can say that, anyone that's standing up in Congress talking, preaching at other people is a little bit performative. But that's good in some ways, right? If you're performative and people take notice, you're spreading the word. You're putting the seed of knowledge in people's brains. If you were to get a floor vote on Medicare for All, people might think it's real. They might go, holy shit, wait, we could have universal single-payer healthcare? Despite how you think about it. I'm just saying in general, if you're a supporter of that and you thought it was like a figment of your imagination, if you see in the news that it comes up on the floor for a vote, you're like, oh shit, we might be able to have this. One of the reasons for doing Force the Vote was that would force Congress people to take a stand one way or the other. Medicare for All currently has 118 co-sponsors, right, out of a House, and that's 118 out of 435, I think. 118 supposed co-sponsors. The general thought is that if it were to come up for a vote, there wouldn't be 118 people that voted for it. AOC was basically saying that she doesn't want to bring it up for a vote because she knows it'll fail. And that would set the Medicare for All movement back. I don't exactly know why it would set it back. I'm not totally sure. What it would do is get Congress people on the record voting yes or no. And then the general population could make a decision whether or not they wanted those people to continue being their representative. It's likely Congress people did not want that to happen because Medicare for All is overwhelmingly popular. Or, as my good friend Danny and I have had this conversation a few times, they may be interested in Medicare public option, but with an option to keep private insurance. They may be interested in single payer somehow in general. Maybe not specifically Medicare for All, but the thought of Medicare for All as like the term that sort of embodies a government run insurance, a single payer insurance, is amenable, is that the word, to a majority of people. It's something, it's like it's supported 67% by all people polled. It's like thousands and thousands of people, and this is Republicans, Democrats, young, old, everybody supports it. I think you're right, and I think it'll probably be incremental steps to get there. I think you're right, and I would also say that I don't think it's just the GOP that's stopping it. Nancy Pelosi has been one of the biggest roadblocks to Medicare for All ever. So the idea was, let's hold back our vote for Nancy Pelosi because she needs the progressive vote. If the CPC, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, held back their votes for Nancy Pelosi, unless she put it on the floor, she would lose speakership. Okay. There's a lot of talk going around about how if you do that, then the GOP is going to take over. That's not how it works. That's not how speakership works. You have to get a majority of votes. Okay. So if the Democrats hold a majority, the other party can never get it. So what happens? The speakership comes up for a vote. Every single one of them vote for Nancy Pelosi. Every single one of the progressives. This is after AOC was denied a committee seat by Nancy Pelosi. In particular, Nancy Pelosi cast the vote for the other person that was running against AOC. So AOC was trying to hold back her. She was saying that she can't force the vote. She can't force Medicare for All onto the floor to vote for it because she's using her leverage smartly, as if leverage is a finite thing and there's only like 5 leverages. Well, Medicare for All would cost 4 leverages, so I can't spend 4 leverages out of my 5 leverages. See how stupid that sounds? That's how stupid it sounded when AOC said it. So she said she was going to use leverage for something important like committee seats. Well, then a committee came up that she wanted to go for, and Nancy Pelosi said no and smacked her back down. Gave it to somebody else. So we lost that committee. We didn't get that. They did get the oversight committee. A lot of the progressive appointees were placed onto the oversight committee with Cori Bush joining them. And they had already sat on the oversight committee, so they weren't really given anything new. Although I suppose they were, I believe they were given full committee status, and there's some kind of difference between a waive committee status, like a starter status, and the full status. I'm not totally sure on the difference there, but AOC came out saying we got full status on the committee now, so that's somehow more important. Fine. Oversight committee is good. Fine. So she didn't get the committee she wanted. Okay. Then it comes time for the AOC vote, and they all say, hell yeah, let's go Nancy Pelosi. Okay. And they essentially got nothing for it. What did they get for it? They got a rules change that applied to PAYGO for COVID timelines. So PAYGO is this, it's a very complicated issue. Like I don't even understand it, to be honest. And I'm kind of an idiot, but the very rudimentary, very basic understanding is that you can't make budgetary inclusions of things that for certain categories of things that need to be in the budget when you propose them, something like that. And so if you get this exception to the rule, then something you propose doesn't have to be met by these budgetary issues. And they got 2 exceptions. One is for healthcare related to COVID. What it said in the rules, healthcare related to COVID, and then something about like a green infrastructure thing, I think, where she was basically proposing it as, look, we can get Medicare for All now because we have this exception for healthcare. But the way I read it, like it says an exception for healthcare as it pertains to COVID-19. Does that really apply, or is that Medicare for All? Does it somehow get us Medicare for All? I don't see how that like connects. And again, I'm an idiot, so I maybe don't understand it. I just hate that when I hear M4A, I can't just trust that it's only that. I know the Dems will throw in some sort of GND regulations in there. Reps will try and push business funding. I just want single issue bills. That's a huge issue, Tibbs. I totally agree. These bills, what was that 5,000 page bill that came out that people were given like 24 hours to write or read? It's so absurd that our government works like that. I think people are worried for a number of legit reasons, but one of the things I'm not sure is how much the general public knows about M4A, including costs and coverage. Yeah, I mean, those fine points are arguable for certain, but I think it's, I think the general idea of having a single payer healthcare system is good, but give us a bill 5 pages long. That's what I'm saying. I think other countries, and I think I quoted Germany as being one of the countries that does this, but their bills, their legislation has to be readable by the average citizen, and it has like a page length or something like that. It's to keep this issue from happening, to keep there from being 5,000 page bills which no one can read, that they hide shit in. We saw today, there's some kind of crazy, what was it that I saw? I think I posted in the Discord. There was like some tiny hidden portion of the 5,000 page bill that was like, you shall have exception from doing so-and-so. Yeah. This is hidden in the 5,000 page bill, this text. Section 631. None of the funds made available by this act, the the spending bill, the NDAA, the $760 billion bill, none of the funds made available by this act shall be used by the Security and Exchange Commission to finalize, issue, or implement any rule, regulation, or order regarding the disclosure of political contributions to tax-exempt organizations, or dues paid to trade associations. This is essentially banning federal regulators from, as David Sirota puts it, exposing cash flowing to dark money groups. So like PACs and things where like their money's basically hidden. There is specific text in the 5,000 page bill that says the Security and Exchange Commission cannot look at it. This is a government regulatory agency. They're not allowed to see what money's flowing where. Like, why is that in this spending bill? Why is that hidden in a 5,000 page bill? That sort of shit is fucking egregious. That is disgusting. It's just like in the, what was the other thing in the, one of the relief packages, there was that horse race thing or horse thing. If Mitch McConnell got some provision inside of the COVID relief package, I think one of the recent ones, it was basically like, yeah, and as a sub-provision to this section, if you own a racehorse, you don't have to pay any tax. How does that? What? We're trying to help people out of like this crazed pandemic. We're talking about racehorses. This type of shit is like, it's absurd. I agree. It should be single issue bills, one issue. 5 pages, totally agree. Medicare for all, put it down in 5 pages or you don't get it. Green New Deal, put it on a stapled 5 pages together, front and back, maybe. 12-point font, nothing greater, nothing less. 5 pages, that's it. If it's too big to be on 5 pages, you split that shit up, it's 2 bills. I totally agree. Someone's got to pass that. That'd be awesome. Then like average Joe Moscrates could read a bill. I'm not gonna sit here and read 5,000 pages. I will read 5 pages of a bill though. I'm very happy to do that. So let me think of some other tax break for the racehorse owners. Yep, that's what it was. It's fucking crazy, dude. I couldn't even believe it. As much as I disagree with AOC, she was right when talking about getting bills more timely and more available for the public to review before a vote. Yeah, exactly. And that the specific instance you're talking about was with this, the bill they just got. Yeah, it was fucking absurd. And by the way, it wasn't just AOC. It was Republican senators as well. Mike Lee. I think there was a few other. Rand Paul was one. All the squad, like right and left, were going like, Mitch McConnell, and by the way, before they got the bill, I'm not joking, before they got that 5,000 page bill, a memo came out from the leader, the majority leader's office, so Mitch's desk, saying that there would be no debate nor an amendment on the bill this evening. That's what it said. There was a direction from Mitch saying there would be no debate and no amendment made to the bill. Then they get sent a 5,000 page bill, 5,000 pages that they have to print. I mean, if you do it like that, print, read, vote. And they were given 2 hours. 5,000 pages, print, read, vote. And there can be no amendments, no debate, no question. That is, I mean, is that not like political and like economic hostage taking at some point? Right? You're just like holding people hostage at that point. Like, no, do what the fuck I say. There'll be no question. It's disgusting. Like, that should never be allowed. Mike Lee did a video that day of, he was standing in front of his printer. His printer's just printing pages out. He's standing here with a stack of like 600 pages of shit. He's like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? I can't read this. It's impossible to read this. And we have to vote on it in 2 hours. Here's a 5,000 page bill. You have 2 hours to review before a vote. It's disgusting. It's so disgusting. This is why, like, there is a huge problem with, like, money and politics and this kind of shit that allows for this to happen. You know that Mitch McConnell didn't write no 5,000 pages. What happens is these Congress people that come up with these votes, they get lobbyists to help them write it. Who do you think the lobbyists are writing this shit for? You think Mitch McConnell owns racehorses and why he did that? He got some special interest in his ear talking about racehorses, and then all of a sudden it shows up in the bill. And by the way, while I will agree with every progressive voice that says this is fucking crazy, and AOC saying this should not be happening, we need very easy to read bills that are quickly digestible, that we can ask questions on, debate, come up with a middle ground, etc. I agree with that wholeheartedly. That does not excuse her from voting yes on that bill. It just doesn't. You can talk shit all day long saying how much you disagree with the way the system works. I disagree with Mitch McConnell. I think people need help. We can't give all this tax break to businesses. I'm not interested in funding the military to $750. We need $2,000 checks. We need all this stuff. I'm going to fight for you people. And then you don't fucking do it. It's not a representative you should want to have. If you're going to tell me that the reason you're being elected is to go to Congress to fight for people, and then you get there and don't fight for people, you should no longer be the representative. That was some of the push behind Force the Vote was, we've elected you there on the campaign that you ran for, which was Medicare for all. That's what she largely ran on. Green New Deal and some other stuff. And then she gets to a position where she can, if she wants, use leverage to extract a vote for Medicare for all, which could get us closer to Medicare for all. Could get us closer. And she chooses not to. I mean, how close is that to a broken campaign promise? That's pretty close. It's tough to argue against that. Same way as screaming about getting, defunding the military and not funding these endless wars. Not, funding for wars and shit. And then you vote for the money that goes to these companies that do war. Now, I understand that sometimes that shit gets packaged with like 10,000 other things, but you have to be willing to risk something. Look at what happened in the Senate in the last 2 weeks for those $2,000 checks. There's a proposal to get $2,000 extra dollars in your pocket for struggling Americans. Everyone's fucking struggling right now. Everybody in this country. Complete lockdown. 26 million people unemployed, whatever it is. Economy, stock market not really, but economy is bad. Okay, people are hurting. Tons of businesses closing up. There's a proposal right now to get $2,000 in the hands of every American. Just get $2,000 out of the door. That proposal was created by Bernie Sanders and Senator Hawley. She only had 3 leverages that required 1 of the 4. Oh, I ran out of leverages. That's very funny. But that proposal was put together by Senator Bernie Sanders and Senator Josh Hawley. You might recognize those names because they sit like this. Josh Hawley's over here on the right. Bernie Sanders over here on the left. If they can come together and agree on one thing, they don't agree on everything. Josh Hawley and Bernie Sanders aren't like good best friends. They don't agree on social issues and all that kind of shit. They do agree on helping American people, helping working families. They agree on that. So what they do is they put their politics aside and say, let's get this done because people fucking need it. And we're the representatives of the people. They put it up for a vote. Mitch McConnell said no. Mitch objected to it. Wouldn't have it. That same night, it came time for a vote. This vote was called a motion to proceed. You can call it a vote, or you don't have to call it a vote, whatever you want to. It's semantics. But everyone in Congress voted one way or another. They voted to proceed to the action of voting on the NDAA. The NDAA is National Defense Authorization something. Basically, it's the funding bill for the government, or for the military. That was the vote coming up. Bernie Sanders said, let's get a vote for $2,000 checks right now, standalone bill, all ready to go. The bill only said, get $2,000 checks. It was basically an amendment to the bill that paid us $600. This would be an amendment that would change that to $2,000. That was the mechanism they were looking to use. Josh Hawley, Bernie Sanders, several other senators agreed. Elizabeth Warren, Wyden, Markey, Senator Cruz, Josh Hawley, and a bunch more. There was like 11 that voted for it. You think every Democrat voted for $2,000 checks? No. Most of the Democrats, I think it was like 86 to 12. No, because some skipped it. I don't remember. But there were like 10 that voted not to proceed. So this is the bill the day before the NDAA was passed. The day before, Bernie Sanders said, let's bring it up for a vote now. Mitch said no and objected. Then there was a vote for a motion to proceed, which meant the next action on the floor was going to be the vote for the defense bill, for the military budget. That was the next action. Bernie was trying to get his vote in first because he knows that once the NDAA is passed, everybody's out. They're done. They're going home. They're not going to vote on 2K checks at that point. So he tried to get on the floor before the motion to proceed. It was objected to. Now there was a chance. There was a leverage opportunity that if a majority of people had voted against the motion to proceed, okay, all that would happen was it stalled there. They cannot vote on NDAA unless that motion to proceed goes through. They can keep bringing up the motion to proceed, but in between there, they can have a debate on 2K checks. They could bring 2K checks up for a vote, that bill up for a vote, the standalone one. That's what Bernie was trying to do by voting no on the motion to proceed. If Democrats would have joined him, the motion to proceed would have been shot down and it would have stayed there. That means they could have more debate, more discussion, gotten more people on board on their side, argued for the American people. Okay, that's what could have happened. Now, what could happen was Mitch McConnell could have just said, okay, well, we're going to vote again on motion to proceed, and again and again and again and again, and just kept going. But if you have the political will and strength and conviction, you continually vote no. That's how shit gets done. You know how you get your way? It's not by giving the other guy everything they want. So if your way is completely in line with the American people, when it comes time to make a hard vote, a hard choice, and you fold immediately, you're not on the side of the American people. You're just not. I consider the senators that voted no to the motion to proceed had a very hard vote. They stood against the rest of the Senate. There was like 12 on both sides. And in fact, there was more Republicans that voted against that motion to proceed than Democrats. So the motion to proceed goes through. They go to the next day. Mitch McConnell immediately adjourns the Senate until the next day at 1 o'clock when they're going to come back and vote on the NDAA. They come back again. Who speaks first? Bernie Sanders, Josh Hawley, I believe Senator Markey spoke as well that day. A few of them spoke, basically saying people need this fucking money. This is the famous picture where Bernie Sanders, he likes to bring out big postcards of tweets. He brought out tweets of Donald fucking Trump. Bernie Sanders started his quote by saying, I got a tweet here from the President of the United States, and I think we can all agree, me and the President don't get along so well. We don't agree on a lot of things. So he's basically saying, like, I don't agree with this guy ever. How is it that I'm agreeing with this guy and none of you are? It's like, none of the Republicans are. What is going on? And And Donald Trump had basically tweeted 2 days earlier saying 2K checks, we need $2,000 to American people right now. Now, whatever you think his motives were, I don't give a shit. I don't care if you think, well, he just wanted to get people on his side. Who gives a shit? There's food lines miles long in major cities. People starving, getting thrown out of their house. Do I give a fuck if the president wants to put his name or his picture on the check? If that shit spends, get it out the door. Get it to people who need it. Stop playing political bullshit with people's like literal lives. That's madness. So trying to extract some kind of win or dig against Donald Trump by blocking money to people is the most insane shit I've ever fucking heard of, if you proclaim to be on the side of the people. Anyways, we go to the next day. They go to do the NDIA vote. All these guys get up and talk, and they say, here's why we need to bring up the checks. Bernie Sanders said, here's what I'll do. Because Mitch McConnell had earlier in the week said that I'll give you $2,000 checks if, and this is what Mitch McConnell said, I'll give you $2,000 checks if you give me an election integrity investigation. Okay, he wanted an investigation into the voter fraud. Okay, he also wanted Section 230. He wanted Section 230 out. This is the one where it's like considering Twitter a platform versus a publisher, where it's basically they're trying to revoke the liability protection of Twitter. Okay, that has different discussions in different ways. I don't think the jury's out completely on which is the best way to proceed on that, but that's a big thing that they were looking at, and because Donald Trump was looking at it. So Mitch McConnell said, I'll give you $2,000 checks, but I want to couple it with a repeal of Section 230 and a election integrity investigation. That was Mitch McConnell's counter proposal to Bernie Sanders. When Bernie Sanders was on the Senate floor, because I watched the whole fucking thing, it was like 8 hours long. When he was on the floor the next day, Bernie Sanders brought the big postcard saying all this. He's like, here's what we're gonna do. Because I want this to pass so bad. He's like, he said, in a minute, I'm gonna bring up my bill for a vote. He's like, my bill has $2,000 checks for every American, and that's it. There's nothing else in it. $2,000 new payment for every American. So everybody gets $1,600 more. That's it. He then goes on to say, I'm also going to propose a vote on Mitch McConnell's bill. That says $2,000 checks and the repeal of Section 230 and the election integrity investigation. And Bernie goes on, of course, correctly, saying, I can't imagine why anyone would object to the Senate Majority Leader's bill. It's his bill. He put it together. He added this stuff. Obviously, he wants it. So let's put it up for a vote. He's like, I'm going to propose these two bills. Then he had to read through his whole garbage, right? He had to read through, they do, it's like, Bernie always started saying, like, I don't know why we still have to read this crap, but it's like how people spoke and how bills are invoked on the floor. Very particular language for all this stuff. They basically just read boilerplate crap. So you can see him like reading during this part. So Bernie Sanders says, I'm going to bring up for proposal a bill HR so-and-so and so, and I'm going to bring up HR so-and-so and so. Okay, that's his bill and Mitch McConnell's version of the same fucking thing, except Mitch McConnell's version had a bunch more stuff in it, okay? Which you would think Mitch put it in the bill, he would want it, right? So then it comes time for vote, and the who's the person in the Senate? Is that the President pro tempore or something like that? President of the Senate goes, is there any objection? And immediately John Cornyn and Pat Toomey and Mitch McConnell object. Imagine how frustrating it must be to be Bernie Sanders and Josh Hawley, okay, in that circumstance, where they go, I want this one thing. It's so clean. It just says $2,000. That's all it says. The president wants it. It'll go out the door today. That's all I want. You're saying no? Fine. Fine. I'll give you what you want. $2,000 checks and all the things that you want in that bill. I'll give you that. I'll vote for that. All we got to do is vote on it. And they still fucking say no. How in the fuck do you say no to a bill that you proposed? There's only one way that happens, is if you didn't give a fucking pass in the first place. You didn't want it. You just wanted other people to vote it down. What Mitch McConnell wanted was for Mitch to put up that bill and for Bernie to say, no, we're absolutely not doing it. Because then Mitch could go back and say, look, I tried to compromise and Bernie said no. That's what he was looking for. Bernie's too smart for that. He said, okay, fuck it, fine. We'll do that. You give everybody $2,000 checks. Now, it could be they're both like calling each other's bluff there. But I feel like in the amount of time that I've been following Bernie Sanders, I would bet that he would take that compromise. Give the people $2,000 and we'll have an election investigation or whatever, because he knows it would come out fine. And we'll get rid of Section 230. Fine. I could absolutely see Bernie Sanders doing that. But the senators who fucking wrote this fucking thing voted it down. Imagine voting down your own bill. It'd be like AOC puts together the Green New Deal, it gets voted on, and she votes no. You can't think of something that ridiculous. Anyways, they objected to it, and once it's objected to, it's fucking dead. It's done. I don't know how exactly it works, but if they propose something and it gets objected, it's apparently killed, and they can't bring it up again in that session, I think, because they were able to bring it up the day after from the previous day when Bernie proposed voting on it. Then it comes time to vote on NDAA, and I think there were 8 senators that voted against it, maybe the same amount, maybe 11 senators that voted against the spending bill for the military. And they all came out and said it's because I told you I wanted 2K checks and you said no, so I'm not voting for your crazy ass bill. So Bernie Sanders voted no, Elizabeth Warren voted no, Josh Hawley voted no, Senator Cruz voted no. Same people from the day before for the motion to proceed. Nobody else. Again, more Republicans voted no to the Defense Authorization Act than the rest. Pretty sure. I could go look, but I'm 90% sure that was the case. I think Bernie is one of the handful in Congress that actually puts the needs of the people he represents above his own. Yeah, it's kind of shocking to see that sometimes, right? You get so cynical about a lot of this stuff for good fucking reason. Look at the story I just told you, which is not, it's fact that like literally happened. I'm not making it up, but you get cynical for a reason with this shit. Like they're just disinterested completely in helping the American people, which is ironic because there was that Hillary Clinton documentary where she basically says, oh, Bernie's like completely unliked in the Congress and no one likes working with him and he's just so unlikable. Hillary Clinton said that about Bernie Sanders. In my opinion, if Hillary Clinton calls you an unlikable person, I'd take that as a badge of fucking honor. like you must be an outstanding person if Hillary Clinton calls you an unlikable person that can't get along with people. Because there's literally pictures of her laughing and hanging out with Donald Trump, like, and George W. Bush, and like these. And I think there's pictures of her with like David Duke and shit, and the Saudi royal family, and like, yeah, I've said it before about Bernie. I said it about Bernie before, is that you know where the guy stands, and there's a reason why he was able to start a movement. Yeah. Anyways, there's been a lot going on lately. A lot of shit I've been frustrated about, particularly with some of the left-leaning politics shit. Hopefully we can find some fucking way out of this. There's a lot of talk about Joe Biden coming in and going right back to his old austerity ways, which is going to be bad for everybody. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully we get some big stuff done. helping people get the vaccine out, all this kind of stuff. No more fucking violence at these rallies, please. I know there was some word the FBI put out that there was, I guess, plans cooking up to do armed rallies on Inauguration Day and stuff. So they called in, I guess the National Guard just got authorized to be there at the inauguration, like 15,000 troops or something. So I have a feeling that these armed protesters who think they're tough shit hitting police officers trying to do their job in the head and killing one of them aren't going to do the same when there's armed military there. I have a feeling they're going to shrink down in their little boy shorts pretty quickly when it comes to that. Fucking piece of shit. I see they're all getting like picked up by the FBI and the police force is so good. Get them in a court and convicted for that shit. Especially those ones that, you know, are hurting people and killing police officers and shit. It's fucking ridiculous. That's it. I plan to, okay, so let me talk about the stream a little bit. As I told you, the new schedule is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It was every day for a little while, but since then I started raiding in WoW more, so now I'm raiding on Tuesday and Thursday, and it's tough for me to stream and raid at the same time and just like talk about it. It's almost impossible. Have a chance to show they mean business now and not business as usual. Oh, it'll be business as usual. But yes, you're right, they do. And any excuse that they don't do something dramatic and progressive is more of the same, more of the bolstering of the fact that the Democrats are not really at all interested in helping people. Wednesday of this week, we're going to be playing some games. I'm thinking we might do some more roguelites on Wednesday. Friday's special show, we're going to do a build show. I have 3 different computers to take apart and then build. I have all the parts sitting behind me in the VR area. That's why there's no VR this week. I planned on doing the politics show in VR land in my newsroom this week, but since I have everything sort of like in boxes behind me, impossible. Okay, so Friday there'll be a special build show where I'm going to have a couple of cameras up and we'll be taking parts apart and putting things together. Politics I'm going to try and do every Monday. Okay, so we're going to go back to Monday night politics, just like we're doing now, a little bit of a shorter show. And I always say that, and then I end up talking for 2 hours, like we did tonight. But it's a good conversation. We'll do that again next week. Should be near Inauguration Day next week, right? A couple days before. So I have more to talk about then. My Twitter is usually quite populated with political talks. If you like that kind of stuff, Moshkerty is on Twitter. You can find standalone videos here on this channel regularly, a lot to do with WoW gaming. There's gonna be, I have a politics subcategory as well, so you can check out that playlist, a couple other politics things. This video itself will also be chopped up with some highlights of our conversation tonight and put in there in a little compilation series. That's it for tonight. Thank you guys so much for the good conversation. If you'd like to continue, there is a link below this screen to the Discord channel, to the Discord server that has a politics channel in it where we chat about this stuff like pretty much all day. So you are welcome. I will talk to you guys later. Stay safe, be healthy. If that means mask or quarantine or socially distance, whatever you think that means, do that. I would prefer you did all of them. Stay safe, don't hurt other people. That's it. Thank you guys so much. Talk to you later.